And we are live once again. What? Alrighty. Okay. Howdy, hey, Flora. Firefighter, good to see you. Finally made it to the beginning of a stream. Happy to have you. Put that away. Water is definitely full from the weight of it. I'm doing good, thank you. Doing good. Yeah. Excited to be back. Thank you, Fishtoe, for the Prime sub. 3 months. Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Whew. Dang, 3 months. Instead of trying to be funny, I'll just say that I appreciate you. Thank you, Hey Denner. You date to distract me from Jelly 2? You dare to distract me from Jelly... Who's Jelly 2? What? What's Jelly 2? Also, thank you, Hey Denner. Appreciate it. Who the hell is Jelly 2? Just dropping by quickly to say, heyo, howdy, hey. Good to see you, Clown. Thank you very much. Jelly second podcast. That's right. That's right. Here it is. I need to make a quick little announcement about that. Second episode of the podcast came out. I forgot about that. It's Saturday. Busy day. For those of you who aren't aware, because I wasn't streaming when it happened and I didn't get to formally announce it on a stream, the lovely folks of the When We Cry podcast, which is a Umineko Higurashi, I think just general When They Cry, maybe you could tell based on the name, discussion podcast, had me on to talk with them about the Questions arc of Umineko a bit ago. And last Saturday, they released the first episode that I recorded with them, and today, they released the second episode. First one talks more about, I believe, the mystery and my general reaction to reading the first 4 episodes, and then the second part is talking more about my thoughts on the magical side of Umineko. Although, I'm a bit scatterbrained when it comes to some of my discussions. So there's a little bit of both in both of those episodes. But 2 more hours for those of you who like the first part. I should actually get to reading Umineko. I'm missing so much Primo content. I'm just following along with Joe, personally. Originally, that was because I wasn't interested enough to read it myself. And now it's like that because I want to stay at pace with him so that whenever I am able to guest star, I'm not ahead of him, and I'm able to theorize on stream. But, yeah. Hello, everyone. It's been a week. It's been a hot minute since last I streamed, and I gotta tell you, I was itching to get back into it. I was wondering if I should do a little filler game stream yesterday, and ultimately, as you are probably aware because of how time functions, decided against it. So we are back today with some Satisfactory Saturday. There are gonna be some changes in the schedule. So, trying to figure out something that works, trying to find something that will be applicable to different circumstances given my time zone. What I have decided on currently is Satisfactory Saturday will now be an irregular feature, which is to say I will not be streaming every Saturday. It will, however, still be on Saturdays, as the name may imply, and around this time of 10 a.m. I think EDT is the time zone I'm currently in, but I'm not sure. EDT or EST, one or the other. They're an hour ahead or behind of each other. I'm just so used to saying EST. I hate that my time zone changes because I wish that it could just be easy and I would know exactly which one I'm in, and then I could tell you, and you could just look it up and it'd be fine. Either way, this is going to stay about the same time. Thank you very much, Hey Denner, for the 5 community gift subs. Greatly appreciated, man. Thank you, thank you. As for our regular streams, we are now going to be starting around 3 p.m. EST EDT. I'm just going to say both because I don't know which one it is currently. Going to be starting around 3 p.m. All right. Now, this lets me get in a little later in the day. Feels a little more relaxed. Howdy, Decoy. Good to see you. Seems like it might work a little better for my needs and my schedule. What that does mean, however, is that Sunday streams, 3 p.m. for me, yes. Sunday streams are going to be a bit shorter. They're probably only going to be around 3 hours because I have D&D on Sundays at 6, right? So Sunday streams will be a little shorter. However, because we now stream in the afternoon, I will have a little more liberty to go longer. So streams are going to be closer to 4 to 5 hours rather than the 3 to 4 that we were working with previously. So schedule is now going to be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, starting at 3 p.m. EDT. I think I'm in EDT right now. That said, what I'm trying to get this primed for is in the event that I get a job that has a normal schedule, which would likely be 9 to 5 or 8 to 4. If that is the case, that would need to shift back another hour, but for the time being, I don't have anything else explicitly lined up, but I'm trying to slowly budget forward a little bit until our normal time can be sometime in my afternoon, which will be more consistent and convenient for me. That's essentially the sacrifice I'm learning how to make, which is a shame to me because a lot of my core consistent audience is in the EU. And so you have time zones that reflect that. And I really don't want to lose you folks, if possible. But unfortunately, time is a son of a bitch. And I do not live across the pond myself. So I'm going to have to work with something that can be consistent for me eventually. But for now, while we have the room to work with it, I'm going to be starting at 3 p.m. EDT. Will I be updating the Twitch schedule? I will be updating the Twitch schedule. But Jelly, you do live across the pond? My perspective is the only one that matters. I'm speaking right now. Thank you very much. No further questions. Actually, please further questions if you have any. But that's the general idea. Later start, less days, longer streams. Took a break last week because I was feeling a bit burnt out. Needed a little break, and fortunately, I'm in the kind of position where I'm able to take I'm able to take those sorts of breaks, and I'm able to recalibrate in the way that I am. And since I'm still able to do that, I want to try and take advantage of it while I still can, so to speak. So that's why we had that break last week, feeling a little burnt out. In particular, I think what sort of made me feel burnt out is we had a string of games there that I felt like I was rushing to complete in some fashion. We had Sifu, which I, by all means, should have done an extra stream of. I should have taken a break at that boss, came back, finished the boss on another stream, and then reran the game to get the true ending. We had Jedi Knight Academy, which I don't necessarily think I rushed through, but I also feel like I didn't fully engage with it in good faith. I actually quite enjoyed that game, to be honest with you. What a pretty intersection. Thank you. I've been working a lot on this railroad. I finally finished the building over there. Either way, I quite enjoyed Jedi Knight Academy, but I feel like the impression that I gave from playing it was that I just really wanted it to be over, and that wasn't the case. I was having a good time with it. And then the one that really got me was Talos Principle Road to Gehenna, because I took the same path as I did in the main game, where I did not read any of the audio logs or any of the terminals or anything like that. And I think in Road to Gehenna, that does the game a sincere disservice. One, because there aren't nearly as many text logs as there are in the base game, so I absolutely could have done it and been perfectly fine for time. But two, because pretty much all of the story and all of the exciting new things that happen in Road to Gehenna are inside of terminals and text logs. There's this really cheesy, like, action fanfiction novel that you can read. There are multiple text-based adventures. There are a bunch of fake, not fake, but like speculative history articles on the history of humanity based on the information in the archives. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in Road to Gehenna that, for one reason or another, because I was rushing, we just didn't get to see any of it. And I feel like I really did that DLC a disservice, because that is my favorite Talos content that exists. I really, really, really enjoy everything there. Terminal boards are fun, but it's a lot for streams. Not really. That's my ultimate point here, is that it's not really a lot for streams. It was well within my capabilities to cover the terminal boards in Road to Gehenna, but for some reason I was just sort of rushing through it. I think I got a little too wrapped up in this idea that, like, I didn't have all that much time to work with, and so I needed to make sure that I got it all done at a reasonable time, so we were cycling through games at a reasonable pace. And that was really getting in the way of me fully enjoying a lot of the experiences, which is a shame, because I did really enjoy those 3 games that I feel like it affected most. Sifu is absolutely fantastic. That is probably one of the best action games I have played in a while. I really enjoyed that game. I really wish I gave it its proper limelight, and just, you know, took a break at the end of stream there, and then came back to it and finished it another day. Jedi Knight Academy is a very quaint game, would be the way that I would describe it. Howdy, Maddie, good to see you. It's a very quaint game. It's definitely of a different era, and it's of a different era in a way that I find very charming. And it also, for me, kind of reignited an appreciation I have for Stars War. I feel like for the longest time I've been treating Stars War, you may be able to tell I've gotten used to saying Stars War. That's an active choice. I've gotten used to treating it, like, completely through a veil of irony in a completely facetious manner, and I don't necessarily like that I was doing that for the entire playthrough, because I did grow up playing Lego Star Wars, and I did grow up enjoying this thing, and I don't know where I get this idea that Stars War has a chip on its shoulder and I need to be the one to take it down a peg. I sort of view Stars War in the same way that I view Warhammer, which is to say that, like, it is this setting that, to me, exists as a toy, and is best interacted with as a toy. It's this sort of fun setting that exists for play. And with that in mind, I would say that the Jedi Knight Academy does a very good job of creating that space that exists for play. I had a very good time with it. And it was nice to get a change of pace. Even if the combat was a little frustrating and I didn't quite understand it, it was a fun game that was something I wouldn't have played otherwise, and I really enjoyed doing so. And then obviously I really love the Talos Principle, and I really, really love Road to Gehenna. And so I'm sad that the experience that I showcased to all of you was extremely abbreviated and missed most of the important aspects that I think make Road to Gehenna such an exceptional experience. So that is all to say, I wanted to sort of take a little time to refocus, to recenter, and to get a better idea of a schedule that would make it feel like I'm not always rushing and scraping for whatever time I can make. So yeah. That's, in essence, the schedule change, and the reasons behind it, and where we're going in the future. So, tomorrow we will return with In the Beginning, the last of the Talos Principle that it currently exists, and I'm really sad about that. And that's another thing. I didn't want to rush through that either. I wanted to give that, you know, the proper time to sort of breathe. If my phrasing makes sense there. A little strip lighting there. So, for now, all we've got today is some SatSat. I finished this building over here in a way that I find relatively acceptable. I couldn't figure out what purpose the building would have, and so I decided, what if I just fenced in a little power supply bundle? Right? Get some batteries in there. And I think that works out relatively well. It looks visually interesting. It fills that space nicely. And this is eventually going to be a power plant, so I'm perfectly fine with that. I quite like this. I'm happy with how this came out. And then the thing that I've been actively avoiding showing you all, which is the fully finished encased industrial beam factory. Well, I say fully finished, I don't have the train operating to and from it yet, but it is fully finished in the sense that I have fully created the building and it produces what it is supposed to produce. Alright, now where are we? Are you poisoning the water supply? No, I'm using it for cooling. I just thought it would look really cool if the machines were in the water and didn't think about the fact that I was producing nuclear materials. You know? I'm sure that's happened to everyone. We've all been there before. Hexchain, by the way, late reply on this one, Flora, has not always had the construction hat. I think I added it about like 4 or 5 Saturdays ago. So it's been there a while, but it hasn't always been there. So here is the completed encased industrial beam factory. I just sort of did whatever my heart wanted to here. It's a little weird. I don't love it, but I like it. And that's the important part. It's got these little walkways that are all glass. Everything is very open concept. This catwalk around the back of the building that had to stay because I built it first and I really fell in love with it. It goes up and around. And then I have this little scaffold on top that I quite like to cover the distance between the actual ceiling of the building and then the train depot here. And then you'll notice I have this set up in what most scholars would describe as an interesting way. All right. So we've got 2 freight platforms this time around, right? And the reason we have 2 freight platforms is because I didn't want to make 2 separate trains and have to figure out a really ugly way to get 2 trains on top of this building. So what I opted for instead, and what I will set up right now, actually, where is it? Transportation, electric locomotive, freight car, and freight car. So, the way that this works is this one train is both going to gather the concrete required to make the encased industrial beams, and is going to distribute the encased industrial beams to the factory, which I think is going to end up being somewhere over yonder in the great beyond. There's still so much left before we can actually get nuclear power up and running. This is like genuinely an insane step up from anything I have ever done before. Either way, the reason this has 2 train cars is this first one goes to our concrete factory over yonder, which produces way more concrete than it needs, right? So this guy's just going to go in there and he's going to grab concrete from there, deliver it here for the encased industrial beams down on this floor here, right? First actual mega project. Yeah, that's definitely the best way to describe it. I'm using essentially the entire biome, or at the very least, I have used this whole chunk of it so far that you can see. I'm using a very large swath of this land, and I really like seeing it fill up. Anyway, so this grabs concrete, and then this second one is just attached so that it's going to have 2 train cars, and its schedule is basically going to be grab concrete, come back, deliver this, come back. I'll talk with either Pub or Boulder, who understand train logistics in these games a little better, to see what would be the ideal way to set up the train schedule there. But for now, that works rather effectively. Do we have a problem here? Is there a reason you're not running? Oh. Was there still a steel beam stuck somewhere there? Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Steel ingot was stuck in that one. That should help with production speed. This is still technically producing under capacity, which is why I have this sink set up. I have enough for 5 machines, but I don't have enough. I have enough resources for 5 machines, but I don't have enough space for 5 machines. But it's actually not that big of an issue at all, considering I only need 1 machine making 6 per minute to fully satisfy the requirements for what I'm building. So we're producing 3 times over capacity, I think, of what we actually need. The only problem, of course, is that it's going to take fucking forever for this to actually fill up. So we're gonna help that along by grabbing some of these guys, and we're just gonna put them all on in there. Either way, that's done. We've got that completed. It's another project down. Now, the next one on the horizon is to make our stator and AI limiter factory, which requires iron, deuterium, and copper, which we can find over on the other track, the right turn of this big intersection. And I'm currently building out to it. We're once again going to have the problem of I'm not sure what I want this building to look like, but more than that, we are going to have the problem of these resources are very scattered. How do I condense them in a way that is visually satisfying? So we're going to have to figure that one out. But for this factory, we need copper, we need iron, we need deuterium. There's plenty of iron everywhere in the desert. There is a normal Caterium node right here that we're going to be using, which, again, as you can see, it's got quite a distance to travel. I'm not sure aesthetically how exactly I'm going to do this. A little uncertain about that, I'm not going to lie to you. A little uncertain about that. And even more uncertain is the fact that we are running out of power. Currently, our max consumption is above our max production. It's not above our actual consumption. In fact, our actual consumption isn't broaching it by a long shot, and that has to do with the fact that we have two factories which produce two rather large factories, shall I say, that produce two capacity and then stop producing. So theoretically, we shouldn't have a problem with that, but it's still something to be aware of. Either way, Caterium is over here. Iron is literally everywhere. And then the copper is way over here. So we're really going to have to bridge some distance here. Is this the copper here? I don't actually remember. How far away is it? That's iron, isn't it? Yeah. Copper, is that the copper over there? Where is it? Nope, not iron. Scan for copper. Yeah, so as you can see, we've got, a little bit of distance to cover here. Now, there are 3 potential routes I'm envisioning here for how we could handle this. The first is obviously we could just make some very long conveyor lines. I made a blueprint specifically for transporting resources over long distances. I made this whole merger set, this whole conveyor pull set that I didn't even show off, so let me show that off real quick. But I made a whole merger conveyor pull set that I'm really proud of and works to carry resources over great distances. So that's a possibility, right? I could just carry the resources wherever they're needed. Yeah? The other possibility is a little obtuse, but is maybe a slightly satisfying way to bridge the gap in a way that could be kind of fun, if not a little difficult. Because of the small distance between these resources, on a macro scale, I could find a way to create fuel in this region and then make a little truck rotation there that delivers the resources to a central location, i.e. to trains so that it can be shipped out. That's an option, and I know you people love trucks, so we will keep that one in consideration. The third option is to have a miniature railroad in that little region. I'm thinking one train that would go between all 3 nodes. It would pick up stuff at all 3 of them, and then it would complete its loop by dropping them all off at the same time at the same location. The downside with that is that railroads are a bit obtuse, and I would need to build a lot of infrastructure to get that looking nice. We're going to have to build a lot of infrastructure regardless. What do you mean, you people? I mean, you folks, the viewers. You love trucks. Anyway, check these out. I'm really happy with these. Made these little nodes here. They carry power and resources. feel like I've set them up in a very visually satisfying way. They've got these little square signs on them that are lights just to make them look a little more visually interesting. They've got the power line thing integrated directly into the top. I made this yellow specifically so that it matches with those sort of construction caution lines on everything. And I love the way that frame supports, or supports in general, work, where they are always just as big or just as wide as the next tier above. So you can do stuff like this, where I have a beam support on top of a pillar, and it fits perfectly on there, and I've painted it so it matches, and then I put that pillar onto a small pillar support, and then connected to the bottom of that pillar is a large pillar. It all flows together in a really satisfying way. Either way, I really like these ones too. These were fun to design. These were a lot of fun to design. I like having a problem in this game and having to come up with an elegant solution to it. It's a very satisfying process. This one primarily was made because I needed to broach this distance, and I wanted to do so in a way that looked nice, and I knew I was going to have to go over water. That's why, I intended or not, the visual inspiration for this one is very much like a buoy. You know what I mean? Like a light that would be sort of floating out there. Ding, is buoy the word I'm thinking of? If you know what I'm talking about, you can see the visual relation between the two objects, right? You know what I'm talking about? Either way, this is a lot of fun to design. But let's see. So, here's what we're working with. We have encased uranium cells. Right now, we are close to making uranium fuel rods. We have encased uranium cells. We have we have 100 per minute. All right? And then we have encased industrial beams, which we are making more than 6 per minute. Right? And then what we need to make now is 10 electromagnetic control rods per minute. I had a sticky note where I did the napkin math for this one. I think it may have gotten thrown away, which, if that is true, that fucking sucks. I really hope it did, but I was cleaning and I was not very particular about what I was keeping if it wasn't a permanent fixture in the room. So that's gone forever. We'll have to do the math again. 4 electromagnetic control rods. I'm going to need what is it? Stators and AI limiters. Now, luckily, the production of these things is relatively simple, and their ratios are pretty contained. The only problem, really, is that I wish I could make separate factories for all of these things, and then combine them into a factory at the end here. It's kind of like a miniature version of what I'm doing with the nuclear power plant as a whole. I wish that I could make... Well, let's think about this. At the very least, I should be processing these ores at their specific sites. So up on that cliff, I should be setting up a little deuterium processing plant. Right? The question is, should I be processing it into ingots and then shipping it to the factory then? Or should I be processing it as ingots, then processing it into deuterium at that factory, and then shipping it to the main factory that I think I'm going to move back? No, we'll put it here. See, this is going to be tough. Because for me to try and conceptualize how I want this to work, I need to have a good, like, mental picture of how it's going to look as well. Already I'm telling you my mental blueprints for this Caterium factory over here. I think I'm going to process the wire. I'm going to smelt the ore and process it into wire right there. That's what I want to do, so that's what I'm going to do. Caterium is good because you can only make one thing out of Caterium, I think. Oh no, you can make Caterium wire as well. Do I need wire for this AI limiter? What do you need? Copper sheets. That's a disappointing. Statter, do you need wire? Statter does need wire. Theoretically, I could make this entirely with iron. I have the recipes and I have the iron surplus to do so. But I think when I mathed it out, I did it with the copper because I have the copper there. I wish so desperately that I could eliminate copper entirely from this equation. And it looks like there is actually... Howdy, CA. Good to see you. There is an alternate recipe. Do I have the alternate recipe to eliminate copper from the equation? And will it just make things more complicated? That's the question. Let's see. Copper rotor. Automated speed wiring. Quick wire... Ooh. That's promising. That's really good, actually. That's one way, because we're going to be producing way more Caterium than we need. So, 60 per minute. Maybe we want that one. Coated cable, a lot of cable, Jesus. Bio. Why? Why would you do that? Circuit board, flexible framework, smart plastic, fused quick wire. No replacement for copper sheets? Not right now, no. That's what I'm trying to see if we have maybe a potential alt recipe that could give us one. But it's not looking like that's going to be the case. Aluminum beam, interesting. Okay, yeah. That is tricky. That's tricky. See, here's the thing. That does, as a matter of fact, get rid of copper in our production line completely. That's our only substitute, is to introduce oil. There is oil somewhat close. And I was planning on processing this oil pretty soon, as a matter of fact, to make a miniature power plant. Because I'm, again, starting to run up against power concerns. I'm worried that by the time I flip my factory on, I will not actually have the power to get it running. I don't think that should be a concern, though, now that I'm thinking about it, because it's going to produce power relatively early in the supply chain. So that shouldn't be a problem. At the very least, though, I am going to go claim those geysers, because I didn't know those were there. We're going to go grab those, because that's free power. And I just want to explore a little bit, just to show you the distance that we would be bridging instead, if I wanted to do such a thing. Which is insane to even consider it. However, something to consider, it would mean I would get to make a big pipeline. Because I could transport the fuel over here through a pipeline rather than build the factory on site. That's making it sound quite promising, actually, because I do like building pipelines a lot. Pipelines are very fun. I quite enjoy them. I could build an oil pipeline. That's really ominous music for me, considering an oil pipeline. I don't like that. I don't like how that made me feel. I think that's an ill omen telling me not to consider that. That was like bad guy discovering an important resource in a scene after the heroes just, like, made some progress. And that was ominous. It was extremely ominous. Didn't like that one bit. No, thank you. Okay. For now, power geothermal. Why is that not what? That's upsetting to me. That's actually a little upsetting to me. I don't like that. Okay. And then I turned off enemy aggression, if you didn't know. I think our easiest route is just going to be to take a power line here and just connect it over to here. Yep. Oh, and I'll get to build a blueprint I haven't built in a while. Hold on. So first and foremost, let's set up blueprints, aesthetics, power tower platform. Down like so. Is that clipping the way that I want it to? Oh, I don't like you. I don't like you. Go away. Go away. I love you, Infinite Nudging. You're my best friend, and I cannot live without you. I'm ride or die for Infinite Nudging. The best thing they added this update. Alright, you go there. And then we want to make a small little... What's up, Jelly? I'm on airplane Wi-Fi. Happy to be your in-flight entertainment, Lemonade Standing. Hope you're doing well. We are still building nuclear power and likely will be for a while. Anyway, foundation goes there. Blueprints. Power tower platform. There. Wire's too long. That sucks. What if we do... Trying to find that, like, perfect little equidistant spot. Nice! Okay. Good stuff. And then what we can do is just 1, 2, 3. The rare use of the fix-it walls from me. I really do not like these walls and don't use them very frequently. Anyway, that's going to connect to there. And now we've got this connected to the grid. Nice. I'm actually really happy with how that shook out. That's a nice little alcove there. Cool. Okay. Got a little sidetracked. We've got oil here. I don't think we're going to process... Well, I do like building pipelines, though. I do really like building pipelines, though. Be kind of nice to build a pipeline. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to get my share of building pipelines whenever we need to route water to the nuclear plant. Because, let me show you what we're working with here. Nuclear power plant. So, I wish it would tell me how much fuel it consumes. And how much that would, here it is. So, uranium fuel rod burns 0.2 per minute. All right? Burns 0.2 per minute. All right? We are going to be making what is 0.4 times 5. We're going to be making 2 per minute. Right? So we're going to have 10 of them. However, I think I want to sloop this. I think I want to Sommer sloop my my 5 manufacturers, if I even have enough to do that. That's 4 each, which I need 20 Sommer sloops. I have enough. Okay. If there's anything that's worth slooping, it's going to be this. So I want to Sommer sloop this, which means I'm going to have 20 nuclear power plants. 20. Now let me rebuild that because there's another variable as part of nuclear power plants. Not just the fuel. Each of them needs water. So we are going to need 4,800 water. If my mental math is correct. Because we're going to need 240 times 20. That's wrong. 240 times 20. 4,800 water per minute. And the plan for that, because there is not that much water in naturally occurring nodes in the desert, not by a long shot, is I'm going to take it from the ocean. Way over on the very edge of the map here, we have an ocean border. So when I say we're going to use the whole desert for this build, I mean we're going to use the whole desert for this build. It's going to be a doozy. We've barely started in terms of scale. Generally speaking, I think a good portion of this, like the dunes, are going to be covered. I don't know if we're going to be using these rocky, craggy areas where a lot of the trees are, but the dunes are going to be almost entirely inhabited. If my general estimations are correct. Get up here. Trying to work my way over. And again, we already have a facility here. I don't know if we're going to be able to connect this to the main power plant. I would like to, in some fashion, connect this. I think that would be fun. Because this was the first thing I built. This little 2-capacity factory that makes my nuclear filters, which was extremely necessary. I say that, usually I say that phrase when I'm joking, and it is actually extremely necessary. Anyway, let's keep going over here. Again, we are going to need a truly massive cluster of pipes. But we're going to be taking it from here. We're going to be taking it from here. I'm going to need to build an offshore pump facility. That's how many water pumps I'm going to need. I have enough water pumps that I'm going to need a building Shame I can't use that. Because we're going to need, let's see. Each pump pulls 120. So we need 4800 divided by 120. 40 pumps! I'm going to need 40 water pumps to power my nuclear plants. Holy shit, dude. Could overclock them? That's a waste. There's no point in overclocking them when my resource well here is functionally limitless. Right? Like I could build water extractors for days and not run out of space to place them with the ocean as our resource well. It's just a matter of I'm going to have to figure out how I want that building to look. Which is going to be a bit. And then what's 4 divided by 600? I'm going to have a cluster of 8 pipes running from this facility to the factories. Okay. Oh, that's annoying. That's annoying. Because they don't... I'm going to need to find a way to make a loop that incorporates all 8 pipes at the same time so that water flow between all of them is normalized. Because they don't evenly divide. Right? Hold on. They don't evenly divide, do they? Nuclear power plant. Yeah, 240. They go for 240 per minute. 240 per minute. And we're going to have 600 per minute is the max that we can fit in a pipe. So I'm going to have to come up with some kind of loop system that incorporate. Unless, is there... How do I find what least common multiple? 240 divided by 600. So 240 times 4. No. 240 divided by 600. 0.4. Why am I having trouble with that one? How do I find their least common multiple? How do I find least common multiple? This is down the line. I don't need to worry about this. Well, I do need to worry about this right now because it's actually the next step. But I have like 4 different factories I need to build before I can even start considering how I'm going to do water logistics. That's how far away this is right now. That's insane. That's crazy. All right, while we're here, we're gonna go visit Purple Truck Gen. Because it's been a while. We're gonna go say hi. We're gonna say hi, and then because it's a short stream, we're gonna take an early break. That's another thing, another change I'm gonna try and implement going forward as well. I'm gonna try to run deliberate mid-roll ads so that they won't run randomly. That should help a lot with people who don't have subs. I fucking hate the way that Twitch does ads, so that seems like the best way that we can circumvent it, is by running them deliberately in some fashion. I'm really happy with how this factory turned out. This looks really, really nice. Really happy with that. There's the yellow truck. Where's Purple Truck Gen? You over in her spot? Where's she at? Still really proud of this bridge. I don't look at the supports for this often enough. Oh, hey, buddy. Perfect timing. Let me land on you real quick for a nice little... Oh, no! I fucked it up! I fucked it up! It was gonna look really cool, and I fucked it up! Oh, man! Man! That sucks. Oh, well. There she goes! There she goes! I like the supports of that bridge. A lot of fun to build. Alright. We will take our break here, but first I need to figure out how to actually run ads during a break. So give me one moment while I figure that out. Hold on. I think I just go to my dashboard. And then that should have something there as an option, if I'm not mistaken. Stream manager. 60 seconds of ads. If I click that, will it just... Please don't do it immediately. I would really like to have some level of control over that. Did it just run ads? Okay. Well. Edit quick actions. Hmm. I would like to run 3 minutes of ads so that we don't have any ads for the rest of the stream. Run a 3-minute ad break. There we go. Okay. Edit quick actions. Okay. Oh, we messed that one up. Oops. Uh-oh. I wish that I could also see when ads are running. That seems like a strange thing to not let me be able to see. But oh well. Oh well. Let me just refresh that. Maybe it'll give us the option. No, I think the fact that I can't click on anything means that ads are still running. Again, I cannot stress enough how strange it is to me that I do not have any way to know if ads are currently live. That seems quite bad. And also very strange considering that when I'm a mod on someone's channel, I can see how long an ad break has been running for. There should be a timer somewhere on this screen for me, but there is not. Does it not display in OBS? It probably just doesn't display in OBS. Oh well. I would have thought that a minute had passed by now. You need to turn it on, I believe. Gotcha. Well, that's something for next stream, I suppose. She's really having a go at it, huh? Oh, no, she's good. She did it. She's so talented. She's so talented. Recently ran an ad and must wait to run it. All right, well, in that case, let's take our break. Back in a few, folks. Heyo, back to it. Thank you, in the meantime, to Dolmec for resubscribing. I love ads. I sure hope resubscribing doesn't remove them for me. Otherwise, I'd be so pissed off I'll start kicking bricks. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh, uh, you know what? Here's what you gotta do. Just open someone else's stream that you're not subscribed to, and you'll get all the ads you want. In fact, you can open multiple streams at once and just leave them running for ads. That's all you gotta do. Now, granted, if you stay in someone's stream for long enough, it seems in this community, there's probably a good chance that someone will just randomly give gift subs, and you might get a sub, and therefore no longer will have ads. But that's a story for another time. If that happens, you just hitchhike to another channel that you're not subscribed to. Simple as. And thank you, Cakewalking Remastered, for, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, for 10 bits. Hey, Jelly, what do you think of my wife, Jun Kazama? I think you should just play Asuka. Just play Oscar instead. Oscar Kazama is my favorite character. I play a little Oscar, actually. Alright, I wasn't subscribed. It's because the Marvel movie came and went, so they've got nothing to run in Finland again. What do you mean the Marvel movie came and went? What are you talking about? It's subscribed for 21 months. Currently on a 12-month streak. 21 months? Really? I've been doing that for this long? People have been subscribing for this long? Damn. That's crazy. Thank you very much, Buller. Greatly appreciated the Prime sub. The Ronin Twitch chatter, never subscribed, always wandering, of course. Such is the way of the wandering chatter. I don't know why where does this take us to? Slug Island. I don't want to go to Slug Island. I want to go to Verge 4. I've been reading a little more Stormlight again, which is to say that Hub set me up with an audiobook app so that I can listen to it while I'm driving. And I'm making very good progress, and I'm having a good time and enjoying it. It's a good, fun book. Fun book. Audiobooks are fun. Bridge is still... I don't even know why I called this bridge... one day I will destroy this blight upon my land. This thing is hideous. Hideous. Absolutely disgusting. But for now, it stays. The bridge is still going in the books, but they're working to undermine it in some way, perhaps. We'll have to wait and see. In addition to that, I haven't been keeping up with House of Leaves very much since the last stream, but I have been playing some videos game. In particular, I have finished Avowed and Doom the Dark Ages. And I quite enjoyed both of them. Well, I won't say that I quite enjoyed both of them, but I did enjoy both of them. Both of them, I think, have a couple of issues. Avowed has more than a few, I think, that aren't necessarily... Let me get into my complex thoughts, actually, because, you know, this is the perfect sort of podcast game in that sense. Avowed was a thoroughly whelming experience that I believe was intended to be a bit more than that. It wasn't a bad time, but I think for an Obsidian RPG, I was a little disappointed, particularly in the dialogue and the writing. The characters in particular were not very good. A lot of the characters felt to me like they essentially just existed to be like a real quick exposition dump of the area that they were related to, or whatever was sort of going on around them. They were there to be a glossary that could introduce and explain terms to me, which is a little strange because the game has an in-game glossary of terms. That during a conversation, if a term comes up, it'll be highlighted in blue, and you can open the glossary and it'll be explained for you, right? My problem with that is that every time it would Avowed is Obsidian, yes. It would always highlight some words, and to me that felt like putting extra emphasis on like the steel garrote as like one of the most early, like one of the things that's introduced earliest to the narrative, and the fact that from the beginning to the end of the game they're highlighted in the glossary as if by that point there's a chance that maybe you need a refresher on what the steel garrote is, felt a little off to me. It was somewhat distracting at a certain point to have terms highlighted in blue, even though I understand the functional utility of it. And the other downside, I think, is this is more of a perceived potential problem, is maybe the only way that I can really phrase it, is this feeling that because they know the player will have that glossary on hand, they can go as hard as they want with proper noun soup and just completely load every single conversation with gods, names, and organizations, and references to historical events, which, granted, does make or does allow for the opportunity of more naturalistic dialogue, because you don't have those conversations where people are explaining these terms to you. But now it feels like every single conversation has a glossary term and feels like it is part of your education in regards to the setting, rather than some way to immerse yourself within it. More than anything, I feel like I got a crash course in the general lore for Pillars of Eternity. I feel like that is the long and short of what the dialogue has delivered to me. Is I feel like I have been educated about what's happening kind of in Pillars of Eternity. And unfortunately, what's happening in Pillars of Eternity is kind of boring. The setting looks very pretty, or at least the first one does look very pretty, but it's by the end of it, it very much felt like a standard kind of fantasy setting where there's, pirates, and there's an empire, and they're evil, but oh no, we're working against them, but we're also kind of working for them. Oh no, even though they're obviously bad. And then there's your hardy lava land of the dwarves, and they're very isolationist and stuck in their ways. And it all just felt very standard by the end of it, which is really strange because it's doing a lot of things that I think are interesting, or at least are setting up for interesting, not so much subversions, but like plays on the usual tropes. Like mages in Avowed, there's a form of magic called animancy, which is essentially just imbuing things with a soul, powering stuff, like making a generator using soul power. And it's illegal in Adir, or the Adiran Empire, which is where your character is from. And I think it's interesting, but you don't really, not much is really done with that concept other than, oh, it's bad because the Empire said it's bad, but everything you know about the Empire is suspect. Because it's an evil empire in a fantasy setting. Right? So a lot of the stuff that seemed interesting didn't really seem to go anywhere for me. Let's see what we're working with. And a lot of the characters were just not very interesting. A lot of them were just honestly downright bad. Like, I did not want to spend time with most of them, I would say. The only real exception to that is Kai, the first companion you get, this like shark guy. It's hard for me to tell whether I wanted to spend more time with him because he was well written in contrast to like a lot of the other characters, or because he has the same voice actor as Garrus from Mass Effect. I can't remember the voice actor's name right now. I really want to get better at doing that. But he has the same voice actor as Garrus, and let me tell you, he's working for his fucking paycheck. That guy's he's got a great performance going there, and his story actually has some, it feels like genuine emotional heart to it. So I think it's a mixture of both. They have a good voice actor, and they actually have a story that's emotionally resonant in some ways. And then you meet your second companion, and his name is Marius, and he is a dwarf who cannot take anything seriously, and every single conversation will look directly at you in the middle of it to interrupt with a Marvel quip. I just fucking hated the guy. I really wanted to like him because he's like this tracker guy who's real glib. It seems like, you know, he gets into his fair share of scrapes. He's on the fringes of society. And then every single conversation, he's like, well, that's fucking crazy, don't you think? That's real stupid. Oh, yeah, sure, let's just go wandering into these mines. And it wouldn't be so bad if the dialogue system didn't literally stop everything to have your companion turn to you in conversation to say their comment in the middle of that conversation. If it was just so much as, like, they didn't look at you when they were saying... This thing, whenever someone is talking to you in Avowed... whenever someone is talking in a conversation in Avowed, they look at you. They look directly at the camera. They look at your first-person player character, okay? And that means that a lot of the time, they will be talking to someone else in the conversation, and they'll look at you while saying those words. And most often what that leads to, though, is whenever your companion has a comment, like if you have Marius in your party, and he's got some cheeky little one-liner to say, dialogue stops, camera shifts over, camera pan, like, changes to look at Marius instead. Marius looks up at you, because it can't just happen all in one fluid motion. It's camera turns to Marius, Marius turns to look up at you, and he looks up at you because he's a dwarf, and he says, like, yeah, sure, let's just go into the creepy basement. And then it pauses for a minute because it's turning the camera back to who you're actually talking to. I hate him so much. Oh my god. As soon as I got another companion, he was gone forever. The only reason I put Marius back in the party is because I had to. This sounds funny as shit. It's funny if you're not trying to have a good time. When I'm explaining it like this, yeah, that's good. But if you're, like, actually trying to get invested in the story, and the second companion you get that you have to have in your party, by the way, you have to have him in your party because you can't dismiss him. At least not as far as I found. You have to have him in your party for the entirety of this, like, beginning of the second act, second half of the first act. He has to be in your party. You're just forced to have this guy who doesn't want to be there and just makes fucking comments from the peanut gallery the whole time. Oh my god. And then you get your third companion, and her name is Giada. And I like her, but she doesn't have anything going on. She's just like a mage. She's an animancer who is just, like, put upon by the expectations of, I guess, her family they were great animancers or something like that, and she feels the pressure to live up to their lineage in some capacity. And that's okay. That's fine. It's not bad, but it's like there's not really anything to it. Her voice actor does a good job. And then the last companion you get is this little furry gremlin woman named Yotsley, and I fucking hate her so much. She's just there to be like your quirky, manic, pixie wizard girl who says funny lines, and every single time she casts a spell, she goes like in combat, and she has one laugh that she does, one recorded laugh that she does in combat. So sometimes she will cast a spell and go and then cast another one and immediately go and just over and over and over again. And then she just makes sex jokes. The very first thing she says to you is a sex joke. Which is another thing that really irks me about Avowed's writing, is that it just can't seem to decide on a tone. And I think the reason it can't decide on a tone is because the dialogue options are really lackluster and strange. It feels like in a game like New Vegas, maybe, you might have to grab a certain perk to get some of the strange dialogue options that they just give you in Avowed. I could play a completely straight-laced person. I could play like a serious, like fucking stick-in-the-mud asshole. And no matter what, I will always have the dialogue option available to me to make a sex joke in the middle of a serious conversation sometimes. Or to have some sarcastic comment. And even though I don't choose those options, the fact that they are seemingly always available to me makes it feel like the game is not taking this shit seriously, so why should I? If that makes sense? It just felt like there was never a consistent tone, and whether that was for me observing my dialogue options and realizing, like, oh, hey, I could just be a little fucking shitter goofball and do whatever the hell, and this conversation will still progress exactly the same as if I had been an extremely boring fantasy RPer. It's my first time playing D&D, and I'm a lawful good paladin, right? I forgot where that sentence started. I sort of got lost in the sauce there. But it feels tonally inconsistent. It's either my dialogue options or it is my companions cutting in and stopping everything in its tracks to be like, no, it's my turn to make a comment. And then, God forbid, you have two companions in your party at the same time who both have something to say, because they'll look at you, they'll turn and look at you and be like, I also have something to add to this conversation. Look back towards the person, camera cuts to the next companion who turns to look at you, as do I. And then they turn back to the person that they're talking to, and the camera turns to them. It's... Whew. There's a lot of problems with the dialogue that I think are made even worse by the fact that it is a Obsidian RPG that has a certain pedigree. It has certain expectations that come with it that it does not seem to be meeting. And whether that's unfair on my behalf to expect that from them, I don't know for sure. But I do know that the dialogue and writing is lackluster for a number of reasons. The combat, however, is pretty good. It's maybe like the best first-person melee combat I've played in a while. And the exploration is really good. In the first area especially, there's a lot of little secrets and treasures that you can find. There's a lot of reason to actually explore the area that you're given that make like the moment-to-moment gameplay very fun. And because that moment-to-moment gameplay is very fun, that's actually worse for the story, because it means that every single time I'm sort of running and jumping because I got every single item in the game that increased my movement speed, so I'm sprinting across the continent at Mach 5 at all times. Every single time my, gaming is interrupted by someone being like, have you heard of the High Elves? I'm fucking, I'm over it as soon as the conversation starts. I'm just like, skip, get me out of here. I want to go back to running and jumping and finding hidden treasure in the caves. And I think that one is a moral failing. That's a personal failing on my behalf. That's me not giving the game the time of day that it perhaps deserves. But whether it actually deserves the time of day, I think is in contention, considering my previous problems with it. And that's all to say that, like, unfortunately, the exploration also doesn't stay very good, mostly because the loot pool is really dry. Almost everything you're going to find is upgrade materials, which are too stingy to really explore in any meaningful way. You'll find unique items, but every unique item in the game is like 10% movement speed plus like 30% carry weight. Every single weapon is like, when you do a strong attack, it does an elemental thing. And when you do a full combo, it also does an elemental thing. And that's every single unique item in the entire game, which starts off cool because the game actually has really interesting ways that the elemental attacks interact with the environment as it relates to exploration. There's like cobwebs you need to burn down with fire damage. There's these conduits that you need to activate with electric damage. If an enemy is standing in water, you can shock the water and it'll deal constant damage to them over time. You can freeze water so that you can run and jump on it. That's used for some platforming. Like, the elemental stuff is pretty interesting. It's just that by the end of the game, I would get another unique item, and it would just be like, here's the thing that does ice, but this time it's a sword. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll use it. Why not? And combat also got a little bland towards the end, but I'm crediting that to me picking melee-focused options rather than exploring more of the spell-casting, spell-slinging side. From what I've heard from people who have done the spell-casting side of the combat, that is the much better way to go. My only problem with the spell-casting side is that I got maybe like 24 skill points, and that was enough for me by the end of like the melee classes that like I pretty much had everything I wanted and I was just picking random bullshit by the end. But looking at the mage skill tree, there were like a million different places where you could put points, to the point where I don't think if you wanted to specialize as a spellcaster, you would have enough points available to do anything but that. And even then, you would only be able to get maybe like a third of the skill tree by the end game. You would have to really, really, really pick and choose what you want to do if you were going spellcaster. And I wasn't super interested in that. But I mean, credit where it's due, I finished the game. I got all the way through the video game, and I did all of it, and I finished it, right? So there's something to be said of that, if nothing else. Now, granted, that does come with the caveat that maybe for the first time in a long time that I can remember, I did not finish all of the side content in an RPG. When I play RPGs, generally speaking, I very much am I'm a completionist when I play any game in general. I like to do everything that the game has to offer, because if I'm enjoying the game, I want to see all of the game, right? And so when I play an RPG, the reason why I tend to get so exhausted by the end of them is because I want to see everything that there is to see, because there might be something worthwhile, or I just want to spend more time, or I'm just in that rhythm where I want to play the game and I want to get stuff done. Now, with Avowed, however, that became a problem because, like I said, towards the end of the game, I came to this realization that, like, the loot pool had dried up, and as interesting as the exploration had begun, it didn't really stay that way. And it meant that, like, yes, I did have, at any given time, like, a quest where It would be a treasure hunt, for example. Like, you find treasure maps, and I can go and look for a unique item out in the world. I could do that, but the past 7 unique items I had already found were the same elemental thing on strong attack, right? So it wasn't as engaging to me by that point. And the quests themselves weren't really anything to write home about either, because, you know, like, the writing's not great, unfortunately, and the rewards aren't great because all they can really give me are money or upgrade materials. And the item I'm using is already pretty much fully upgraded, and any unique items I get are suffering from the same problem as mentioned before, right? So I just sort of checked out and just finished the game instead of getting all the way to the end of it. And I don't really think it had that much impact on the game itself. It felt like, you know, the credits rolled and I got my here's where everyone is now slideshow, and it seemed pretty satisfactory. It's, no pun intended. You know, and it seems like everything shook out pretty well there. But, like, you know, it felt bad to me to finish a game and to say, like, I don't really have any investment in seeing this through to the very end. I just kind of want to be done with it. So it's a good game. It's relatively whelming. I don't know that I would recommend it unless you're really interested in that sort of, like, spell casting, jumping around, running exploration part of it. If you go in there expecting the kind of storytelling that maybe Bethesda has conditioned you to expect from their games, I think you will be sorely disappointed, personally. But that's just me. Now, on the other hand of games, on the other side of games that I've been playing recently, I recently played Doom: The Dark Ages, which is a game that, to be honest with you, I quite enjoyed. It's very different from Eternal in a lot of ways that I'm not sure they all work. The vibe that I get, and it's something that Joe has said as well, is that they... I don't know if they hit a wall with Eternal's game design, or they just exhausted everything that the system was capable of in some capacity. But they very clearly wanted to pivot to something completely different from what Eternal had to offer. They definitely, from the looks of it, wanted something that was a completely, not completely, but like a much different pace, a much different design philosophy from Doom Eternal. And that's not inherently a bad thing. In fact, I quite like it. I think that the changes that they made to the system, while not all hits, are, I think, across the board, generally positive in my mind. There are a couple things that I have issue with, but it's hard to say whether my issues with them are because it's not Doom Eternal, or are because they're genuine gripes that I may have with the game design. I lean more heavily for most of them towards the former, where it's just something in my brain is telling me, like, yeah, this is good, but Doom Eternal was better in some aspects. I think the biggest one, the biggest one that I can really point to in that regard specifically is weapons and ammo. By the end of the game, I definitely found that I was swapping through my weapons relatively frequently. If an enemy came up, I would swap to a weapon to sort of counter their particular strengths and or weaknesses. I was in that sort of flow state where I was using most of my tools to a relatively full potential, right? And I felt like I was in a good flow state. I was having a good time. It was a lot of fun. But that comes with the caveat of I've also played Doom Eternal, and Doom Eternal puts you in that flow state by force, is the best way that I can describe it. I had to work to achieve that flow state when I was playing Doom the Dark Ages. When I was playing Doom Eternal, you either reach that flow state or you die. Like, the flow state that you need where you are constantly swapping between all of your options and you're letting a grenade fly, and then there's a cockademon, so you shoot a grenade at him and then you swap to your line rifle or whatever the fuck it's called, so that you can real quick snipe a spider's turret to disable him as like a problem on the battlefield or something like that, and you're just always firing your Gauss cannon, swap to your super shotgun, fire the super shotgun, swap to the Gauss cannon, just cycling through weapons at a breakneck pace at all hours. Like every single second of combat, you are doing something to ensure that you survive, and if you're not always doing something, you are in danger of dying. That sublime level of hyper-awareness that Doom Eternal puts you in is something that just comes naturally to that game. It is something that happens as a result of playing it. Whereas in Doom the Dark Ages, it is something that I had to work to put myself into. I had to engage with a lot of systems that I didn't necessarily need to engage with. A lot of the time, especially with ammo, it felt like I would swap between weapons, not because I ran out of ammo, because melee is now very integral to how the game operates, and melee generates ammo. I never felt stressed for ammo when I was playing the game. And so a lot of the time when I was swapping weapons, it was entirely because I wanted a change of pace, or either I wanted a change of pace, or just an enemy came up that needed me to swap to a different weapon. But there was never a time, like would happen in Eternal, where I would be cycling through my weapons and it would just be like, shit, out of shotgun ammo. Okay, swapping to the next one, just keep going, keep moving, right? Whereas, so there's less panic in Dark Ages, I feel. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because again, it's clear they have a different design philosophy behind how the game works this time around. They're not going for that extremely hyper-mobile. I think stand and fight is the language that they use in a lot of the advertising. It certainly showed up a lot on the loading screens whenever I died. This stand and fight idea. Where you have your shield, you have the option to block projectiles, so positioning isn't as important. And you have the parry, so there are a lot of projectiles that you need to be wary of so that you can parry and you can sort of shift the momentum in your favor. It's less about getting in jabs where you can, and more about waiting for the perfect moment to just switch the momentum, and then suddenly you're the aggressor instead of being on the defensive. Like, rather than being really scrappy like you were in Eternal, where you're constantly on the move, constantly making decisions to just stay alive. In Eternal, it's just sort of like biding your time until, like, now it's my fucking turn, and you just wipe the floor with the entire room. Which, by the end of the game, whenever the arena started to get longer and the enemy diversity really ramped up, I found myself really enjoying it. Despite the fact that I wasn't under those same sorts of stress, I got into what I think was the ideal frame of mind for playing the game, and I was having a really good time with it. That said, the entire time I was playing it, I couldn't shake the feeling of, like, I feel like I'd be having a better time if I was playing Eternal. That's really the best way that I can put it. And it's not that the systems are bad. I think it's just they I feel like they just fucking perfected it. They just got it in one with Doom. Not got it in one. They got it in two with Doom Eternal. They just fucking nailed it. And you can't improve on perfection. So the only option is to go for a side grade entirely. And try a lot of new things. I will say, I liked the dragon sections. The dragon sections were a nice little change of pace. It was nice to get a little bit of, like, more open exploration stuff going on there. I thought that was fun. It was a nice way to have these larger levels without being necessarily, like, locked into Doom Guy's more constrained movement in a 3D space, where when you're playing as the dragon, you can just sort of fly around, go wherever, then you find a landing zone, and then you get to take a little, like, you're constantly switching between those two modes of gameplay, and it feels nice. It feels fun. It's a fun change of pace that I really enjoyed. The mech, not so much. Not so much. I didn't hate the mech sections. In fact, by the end of the game, whenever they came around, I actually really enjoyed the last mech level. I'll be completely honest with you. The last mech level, to me, finally felt like it achieved what I believe the design intent is with the mech levels, where it's not supposed to be difficult, it's not supposed to be mentally taxing, it's just supposed to be this cool fucking, I'm in a giant robot, let me just fucking punch a massive demon, let me clock a massive demon in the jaw, I'm gonna walk around and tear down an entire city, I'm just a giant fucking robot, and it's cool. The last mech level felt like that to me. I feel like it really worked. And I can't say why it worked. Maybe it was just the change of pace when I needed it, but I really enjoyed it. But a lot of the other time, like the first mech level that rolls around, I did not enjoy. I didn't have a good time with that. It felt very strange. Also, I forgot to say, Cakewalking, thank you very much for the 10 bits. Greatly appreciated. The first mech level felt like it was happening at a time where I just wanted to play some Doom. I wanted to get in there, I wanted to do some Doom guy shit, I wanted to run around, search through the level, blow some demons up, and then it was like, alright, now here's some extremely rudimentary dodging and beat 'em up mechanics. Have fun with that, and I'll be like, yeah, I guess I'll try, sure. And it feels like it just doesn't necessarily come at the right place to be appreciated. Problem with Dark Ages is there's too much lag between actions, weapon swapping, melee attacks, the general level, and arena design. Yeah, I agree with that. I think my biggest problem with the game that I know for sure I would call it a problem, and it's not just in comparison to Eternal, even though Eternal does give you some frame of reference for it, is weapon swapping is absurdly sluggish. Swapping between weapons on the fly to counter an enemy weakness feels bad. It just feels bad to do. It's really slow in a way that just confuses me. I cannot tell you how many times in the late game I would try to swap to a different weapon to better handle a situation, and because the weapon swap locks you into that animation, you can't parry or block or do any defensive options, and since your movement is so limited, you're just sort of dead because you swapped at the wrong moment. And that doesn't seem like something that should be happening in a Doom game to me. That might be a little... It's possible. I'm willing to accept that that's a skill issue. I'm willing to accept it's a skill issue of just like, I swapped at the wrong time, That's my fault. I'm dead now. Okay, I should accept that. But maybe that's just coming from Eternal, where weapon swapping is literally like you shoot a gun and you swap to another one to fire it instantaneously, and you're just constantly cycling between them. It just felt really slow in a way that I didn't enjoy, and felt quite bad. And as a result, it means that these really cool combo ideas of like constantly flowing between your arsenal, of weaving, like Pub is saying, a shield throw, shotgun, melee all together doesn't work, because the transition between those things is really sluggish, and the enemy might attack in the middle of that, and because you're in the middle of your animation, you can't do anything to stop that from happening. I felt a lot of the time, maybe it's just because I was using the flail and that's a slower melee option. I felt a lot of the time that I would try to melee, and then towards the end of my melee animation, the enemy would go for their own attack, and it would be something that I would need to parry, and I just would be stuck in the end lag from my melee attack and wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Weapon swapping being slow was the devs trying to bring back the methodical old-school Doom's gameplay style, but when the game is also having the eternal super-fast reactive combat DNA, it kind of collides in a weird state. Yeah, it's in a weird spot where it's trying not to be eternal, but it very clearly has Eternal's blood, if that makes sense. Like, the way that the game plays just has some inherent essence, or the way that the enemies play has some inherent essence that feels like Eternal. But you don't feel like you're playing in that same space. This might be a hot take, but the game would be better with no parry. I disagree. I think the parry is one of the things that towards the end of the game made the game feel so satisfying to me. But I do think that from a design standpoint, the parry may have been something that, like, fucked stuff up, if that makes sense. Like, I think part of it... how can I phrase it? I think if I'm trying to get in the heads of the developers, I think they came up with the idea of going for this more medieval style game, and they're like, okay, let's give Doom Guy a shield. And because he has that shield, you have to sort of design around what a shield is in terms of gameplay mechanics, in terms of what it might imply to the player, in terms of the sorts of things that you usually do with a shield in a game. And because that shield is going to be so central to how Doom Guy is designed, it sort of influences the entire direction of the game, in a sense. Problem with the parry is that you end up waiting for the enemies to do stuff, but then you get mogged because the game doesn't want you to wait for stuff. Yes and no. I think that is something that I started out feeling, and then the further I got into the game, I think that's something that you learn to play around. There are a lot of different weapons that you can use and a lot of strategies that you can employ that get you into a state where you are parry, counterattack, parry, counterattack, parry, counterattack, kind of like Sekiro against some of the enemies, it felt like to me. Which is, high praise for that system, but it's not nearly as engaging, I think, mostly because the parry feels a little loosey-goosey. I think the parry timing is way too generous, but I also feel like if the parry timing were less generous, given the design space of a lot of the larger arenas, it would kind of fall apart. I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure. There's a lot going on there. 30 times 8. 240. Okay, so I need to do one more of these? Is that right? Yep. Again, my biggest problem with the game was generally that I wasn't it didn't put the same kind of pressure on me that Eternal did. And I think that's what I know that's what I really liked about Eternal, was the amount of pressure that it puts on you, the player, to just keep pace sometimes. Eternal is an extremely demanding game at times. And I really like that because there's just nothing else like it. Again, it forces you into that flow state. The flow state in Eternal is not so much like a higher level achievement. It is a necessity for survival. Another game that I mean, it's gonna feel a little disingenuous since Maddie is here, but like Magenta Horizon does that really well. I felt like when I was playing a lot of the like endgame levels on Reaper in Magenta Horizon, I was not so much thinking as I was just doing. I was just in this permanent fixation of like knowing exactly what I needed to do and just executing on it. And the only thing that I was really thinking about was my positioning, and that was it. Like, where am I? And then go. Just orienting myself and then controlling the horde as needed. I think Magenta Horizon does that in a really, really good way. In a similar way to how Doom Eternal does it, where you are always keeping stock of your surroundings, and then everything else is just sort of raw instinct at a certain point. And that's how you need to be to function on the higher levels of play. I think Doom Eternal is, and I don't mean this as a disparaging comment, because I think a lot of people hear this, and with a game like Doom, it comes across as disparaging. It is a much more accessible game than Doom Eternal. Dark Ages is more accessible than Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal is very hardcore. I think the public reception of the game at launch was a little negative just because of how overwhelming it is and how much it needs you to get into that flow state to even understand it properly. Nope. And then obviously once people finally understood that, and they understood like, hey, there's a reason you don't have any combat options that don't have ammo, and it's because you're just supposed to, you're meant to fucking rip and tear. You are meant to claw for every single inch of progress that you can make in an encounter. You're supposed to always be on the back end and still making it out of the other side. Whereas in Dark Ages, Joe keeps pulling back to it, that idea of like, you are less of a, you're in Eternal, you're a fighter jet. In Dark Ages, you're a tank. By the end of the game, I think I did agree with that sentiment. Oh, big drink of water. Needed that one. By the end of the game, I think I did agree with that sentiment. I felt very solid. I felt like a fucking force of nature in the sense of like I was the immovable object and the unstoppable force. Right? It felt like anything the game threw at me, I would just knock that shit aside and then pummel it into the dirt. Whereas in again, it's the difference between taking the blow and counterattacking and dodging the blow and counterattacking. In Dark Ages, you are taking that shit, you're glancing that blow, you are deflecting it, and then you are retaliating. In Eternal, you are constantly weaving between attacks to force an opening and then capitalizing on it. Eternal came out at the perfect time at the beginning of the pandemic. Yeah, it definitely released at a very good time. It also had that sort of meme potential because it released at the same time as Animal Crossing. So a lot of people got tied up in that. The sort of thing that made like Barbenheimer popular. was just the fun contrast between the two things that helps both of them do well. I want to replay Eternal. I don't think I'll ever want to replay Dark Ages. I don't necessarily think I agree with that sentiment. I think I would be eager to replay the game on Ultra Nightmare now that I feel like I understand towards the end of the game what it wants from me and what systems are available, so I know what to specialize into. But like, I agree with you that the pull isn't as strong as in Eternal. Nope. We're going for... What are we making here? Pipes. Right, because I'm making encased uranium. I'm making this. I need to make electromagnetic control rods, which means that I need... AI limiter is gold and copper, so we need the statter. We're making pipes. Pipes, how much do I need? I need to do the fucking napkin math for this. God damn it. I definitely don't have enough time to do this. Oh my god, wow. I stood up to turn my fan on, and I got out of my gamer trapezoid, and it's crazy how much echo there is in this room outside of this sound booth. That's insane. I personally thought that the Eternal DLCs went in the wrong direction with the game design. I hated the use X weapon to counter X type of enemy, and generally thought the encounters were designed worse than the base game as well. I haven't played the DLC yet. Maybe that's something that... I don't know if the DLC is included with Game Pass, but if it is, that'd be nice. If not, maybe if I replay Eternal, I'll want to do the DLC in some capacity. Can you hear that fan, by the way? I think I have that on a little loud. It's fine. Stream's not going to be going much longer anyway. As soon as Joe goes live, we're going to be rating him. I didn't play the DLCs, but I liked... The one thing that I think was sorely missing from Dark Ages was just that level of player reactivity outside of parrying. I feel like the only... They're submitting fan art 7 minutes before stream again. Buddy, you're the one that signed up for this. You're the curator, buddy. You're the curator. That's on you, man. That's what you gotta do. You gotta live with that. That's your life now. I like stuff like when you get the grenade launcher upgrade for the combat shotgun, you shoot at the Cocodemon, that just instantly takes him out, right? Stuff like that I really enjoyed. And that's not super present in Dark Ages in a way that makes the enemy design feel less distinct, if that makes sense. I feel like I don't have super unique responses to a lot of the cast, and because I don't respond in interesting ways or unique ways, they don't feel unique to my brain. Right? Cocodemon insta-kill is the biggest trap in Eternal. Explain? Stone Imp my below. Yeah, I don't like the Stone Imps at all. The Stone Imps are... I don't know what's going on with them. I think one of my biggest, like, what are we even doing here gripes with Dark Ages is, why is there not, like, a cooldown that I can see for my shield bash? What are we doing here? Like, when I was playing Eternal, I had 2 grenades. Or was it 3? I can't remember. But I had over-the-shoulder grenades, and all of those had cooldowns that I could watch them tick back up, and I knew exactly when it was available to me. You know, I knew exactly when I was going to get to use it, and I was always watching that timer because I needed it as soon as it was up again, right? Whereas with the shield bash in Dark Ages, I can't rely on it because I don't know when it's going to be active. I use it, and then at some indeterminate time between like 2 or 3 seconds, it comes back. Using the grenades for Cocodemon gets you killed. You're better off snipe crossbow swapping to kill him from a distance. Why does it get you killed? Is it because you have to wait for him to do that like swallow animation and that's like downtime? Or what's going on with that? Is it just like anything? Yes, and you have to get okay, yeah, and you don't want to get close to a cocodemon under any circumstances, right? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I like that interaction exists though, because that sticks out to me in my mind as like this enemy is unique and has a unique counter. Whereas a lot of the time in Dark Ages, what would happen is an enemy will have armor, and the counter for armor is like 4 of my 8 weapons. So I guess I'll just switch to whatever one suits my fancy at this current point in time. You know? Granted, if there was a big enemy that I knew was like unique for having so much armor, rather than it just being like an upgraded enemy who now has armor, I would switch to the chain shot because I know that's my big armor cracker, right? Generally speaking, chain shot, my beloved. That thing's great. I love it. But a lot of the guns felt like they lacked a unique identity towards the beginning of the game. By the end of the game, like I said, I was very much in a flow state where I had a game plan and I had reasons to be using a lot of the weapons. I think the only 2 exceptions to that are the plasma gun and the rail spike gun. I never felt like I had a reason explicitly to use those at a certain point. Because the big problem with the railgun is like I can do better with other guns. The Impaler would be amazing in Eternal. Yeah, it absolutely would be. Yes, Impaler would be fucking crazy. But in this game, it's like, why would I worry about the precision of my shots when I can just go fucking crazy on them instead? So I didn't end up using the Impaler. I didn't end up using the Impaler at all, actually. Like, I never once swapped to it outside of getting the Mastery Challenge at the very end of the game. And then the Plasma Guns, I think the Plasma Guns, they have that unique interaction with the fodder that have plasma shields, but because you can get a shield throw upgrade that ricochets off of plasma shields, I didn't feel like there was ever any reason for me to use the plasma guns to detonate the shields, because it was more advantageous for me to just throw my shield at it. That worked way better every single time. So it felt like the shield just sort of eliminated that as an option, really. Because it was just better. Simple as, you know? Chain shot felt like it had a unique identity, felt like it was definitely something to use. Rocket launcher was my heal gun. When I was up against a very defensive, like parry-heavy enemy, like a cyber demon, I would use the rocket launcher and just go to fucking town. If there was something that I had to strafe around a lot and I needed some health, I would use the upgraded, like, skull grinder thing. I liked the skull grinder a lot. I think that gun was probably my overall the skull grinder and the chain shot were probably my overall favorites. I liked the chain shot just because a fucking railgun, but it's a ball and chain, is an awesome fucking concept. The Shredder is amazing because it gives you movement speed. And movement speed in this game is king. Actually having the ability to navigate around the arena at a higher speed and avoid projectiles, like really, really avoid them in the same kind of way that Doom Eternal would let you, felt amazing, and that made the Shredder one of my favorite guns. And the Ravager, in contrast to that, I loved having this gun that I could just fucking lock in and lock down, and I could shoot this enemy and I could strafe around them and just fucking lock on this one guy and mow him down and heal in the process. I really liked the Shredder and the Ravager. Those are probably that was probably my favorite gun outside of the flail gun. Shotgun was good. Combat shotgun was really good. The burn mechanic was interesting. Again, that's really good for generating armor on a lot of fodder enemies. Super shotgun's always good. It's got the right fucking kick to it. It's got that oomph. Just knock you off your fucking feet. It's really good. Okay, I need to do some napkin math, even though we're probably not going to get anything done this stream at all. And I really wish I didn't throw away that sticky note. Maybe it's around here somewhere? Hold on. It could be. It's possible. Okay, no. Not seeing it. Unless did it slip? Did it fall somewhere? Oh no. Speaking of things, it fell. My blanket. Oh no. Getting more echo, more reverb. It's a disaster. That's not a sticky note, but that is a $5 bill. Where's my phone? We're searching. We're searching for lost notes. Nope. Wait. Found it. There it is. Fell under the desk. Okay. Whew. That's good. I really didn't want to have to do that math again. Okay. So, we need 200 iron, and that's just going to be making 45 steel pipe. That's it? Really? We're just 200 iron? Really? Okay, well, we have 480 to work with here. So I think we're probably just going to use the iron wire recipe on that one. That seems like that's probably the play. But I suppose, since Joe is live, we'll figure out how that goes later. For now, we're going to call it there. I yapped way too much about video games in the second half after break. It's very hard for me to yap and focus on doing something at the same time. But I had fun. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And it's good to be back. Again, streams will return tomorrow with Talos Principle in the beginning. Going to start at 3 p.m. EDT. So, good to be back. Happy to be here. And again, Satisfactory Saturday will not be a regular feature anymore, so the next time I do this, I will have something to show you. So, thank you very much for watching. We raid Anderson JPH. Always a pleasure. I'll see you all tomorrow, folks. Have a good one. See ya. Just send out that raid. I gotta remember, it takes 10 seconds to actually send out a raid. So I say my goodbyes and I say my see ya, and then I have to wait a little bit, and it's always really awkward. Anyway, bye.